Hey, my fellow evolvers, welcome back to Evolving with Tina. If you're new here, I'm Tina, a married mom of three in my late 40s, navigating this ongoing journey of healing and growth. I started this podcast as a place to be real, sharing what I'm going through, what I've learned, and what I've already been through, with the hope it helps other women who might be walking the same path. Here, we get honest about what it really means to show up for yourself day after day, even when it's messy, confusing, and downright hard. Because growth, it's not a straight line. It can be beautiful and exhausting. Some days we're on fire, and other days we're just barely getting by. But no matter where you are on your journey, I want you to know this: you're not alone. I'm right here with you. You don't just land here by accident. You're here because something inside you knows it's time to do life differently. You've spent years holding it all together for everyone else, and now it's your turn. This space is for the women who are done abandoning themselves just to keep the peace and are finally ready to claim something more without guilt or apology. So, if you've been waiting for a sign, let this be it. So today we're talking about my dad. This episode is raw, honest, and deeply personal because it's about the kind of love that's complicated. It's about showing up for someone who didn't show up for you. It's about becoming the caregiver to a parent who was never really there, and the emotional weight that comes along with that. How do you deal with it? How do you hold love and resentment at the same time? That's what we're talking about today. So, wherever you are, grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Okay, let's start at the beginning. My mom met my dad when she was 13 and he was 14. My mom's older brother, Mike, was actually friends with my dad, and he introduced them. My dad and my mom came from pretty dysfunctional homes, families filled with chaos and struggle. So I think in some way they probably connected through their pain. They saw something in each other that most likely felt familiar. And not long after, my mom ended up getting pregnant with my brother when she was 15. And at that time, back then, being pregnant and not married was a really bad thing. So she was forced to marry my dad. I should say they were forced to marry each other. It was literally a shotgun wedding. And a few years after that, I was born. But my parents' marriage didn't last. It was pretty toxic. My dad, he drank a lot. He cheated on my mom, and when he drank, he was abusive. Eventually, my mom had enough, so she left him not long after I was born. And eventually, she did end up meeting my stepdad, and they've been together ever since. So, a really long time. Growing up, my dad was in and out of relationships with women who were, let's just say, unstable. Some of them were okay, others not so much. My brother and I would sometimes go stay with him during the summer, if he had a girlfriend around to watch us or whatever. That was kind of the rule. If he had women in the picture, we might see him. If not, we didn't. I remember one of his girlfriends in particular, their apartment was so disgusting. It honestly felt like something out of like a horror movie. You couldn't even see the floor. The kitchen was literally jam-packed. Dirty dishes, food everywhere, garbage spilling out. I'm talking cockroaches running around. It was so vile. My brother and I, we would literally have to clear a path just to reach the couch because we were sleeping on the couch. We didn't have our own room because she had a couple kids. And we literally had to clean the path and then clean off the couch just so we could sleep. It was a mess. But we were just glad we were spending some time with my dad. So we literally never even told our mom about it because we knew if she knew the state of his house, she wouldn't let us back, I'm sure. So my dad was a heavy drinker even back then, and he was a bad drunk. He was loud, aggressive, and unpredictable. I remember one time my brother once brought his girlfriend up to meet him, and he was just super excited to introduce her. And when we got there, my dad was loaded, and he eventually picked a fight with my brother right in front of her. It was so humiliating, and I was embarrassed for him. My brother was crushed, and yet here's the most confusing part. My dad, he adored me. Every time I saw him, he'd ask me what I was thinking, or he was just curious about how I felt. He'd sit with me and try to connect in these deep emotional ways. And as a little girl, that was just super confusing because he didn't call, he didn't show up, he wasn't consistent in my life at all. But when I was physically with him, he made me feel like I was everything, like I was super special. And I couldn't understand how somebody could make you feel so seen in one moment and then so forgotten in the next. But here's the thing, it wasn't all bad. We actually had some really great memories. I've got a lot of really good memories of me and my dad. He used to work as a janitor for a really big insurance company. And while me and my brother waited for him to finish his shift, my brother and I would play snooker in the lounge. And we had so much fun there because nobody else was there. My dad worked nights. So we would either go there like early in the morning and nobody was there. The place was closed up. So we just had the run of the mill. It was so much fun. Just the simplest things, but we loved it. It felt like something special for just us. And one of my favorite memories of all time with my dad was the day we walked on frozen waves. It was crazy. We were at Port Bruce, I believe it was, and the water had frozen mid-motion. So the waves were stuck in place like solid and glossy, like sculptures almost. We literally climbed them up and walked up and down them. My dad had like penny loafers on and he was slipping and falling all over the place, but it was so much fun. That moment will literally stay with me forever. So when I think of my dad, I don't think of a bad man because he was never that to me. He wasn't present. No, he didn't show up consistently, but he was never cruel. I don't think he's ever even raised his voice to me once in my life. What made it hard was the absence. We lived a few hours away from him, and honestly, I don't ever remember him making the effort to come see us. I remember us always going to see him. Like me and my brother would take the train to go down and see him, and my mom would either drive us or we would always make the effort to get down there some way or another. But the crazy thing is, the relationship he had with my brother was very different. There was more tension, more conflict there. And to this day, my brother doesn't really want much to do with him. I think my dad just didn't know how to handle the emotional responsibility of parenting, especially with a son who challenged him. With me, it was probably a lot easier. Like I was the soft spot and he adored me, but he loved my brother too. But I don't think he knew how to show that from a male's perspective. So yeah, it was just really, really super confusing. Like love was there, but support, consistency, showing up, yeah, all those parts were missing. And when I look back now, not just as a daughter, but like as a woman who's done a lot of inner work, I realize just how much that dynamic shaped me. Because when a little girl is adored but emotionally abandoned, when love feels warm one minute and then missing the next, it really messes with your ability to trust. You start questioning your worth without even realizing it. You think, if I mattered, wouldn't he call? If he loves me this much when I'm with him, why does he disappear when I'm not? And that confusion doesn't just stay in childhood, it kind of follows you through life, into your friendships, into your romantic relationships, into this deep rooted belief that love means waiting, chasing, or even earning it. I learned early on that I had to be easy to love, quiet, good, because if I needed too much, if I asked for more, it might push people away. And while my dad never raised his voice at me, the silence spoke loud. His absence shaped me just as much as his affection did. My brother, on the other hand, had a completely different experience. They butted heads. There was a lot of tension, especially when my dad was drunk. My brother really challenged him, and my dad didn't know how to handle it. It became explosive at times. So while I got inconsistent affection, my brother got conflict, and neither one of us got the version of the father we really needed. And now their relationship is almost non-existent. My brother has chosen to distance himself because for him, the damage ran deep. And honestly, I respect that. We all cope differently. We all carry our wounds in our own way. And what I've learned through this is it's okay to hold both love and resentment. You get to decide what you carry and what you let go. So as time went on, my dad eventually got remarried, and somewhere along the way, he stopped drinking, he settled down, he just worked, lived a pretty normal life. And I got older, I had my first son, I met my husband Jason, had two more boys. I was living my life, building a family on my own. And during those years, my dad would call once in a while. He'd come up for Christmas some years, and you could tell he was trying to be more present, trying to show up. But deep down, I knew he'd never be consistent because he never was. So I just stopped expecting that and appreciated the effort, but I didn't really rely on it. You know what I mean by that? Then after he retired, he started to just slow down. He didn't do much. He spent most of his time watching TV in his recliner. And then one day, as he was getting up from his chair, he literally fell. His legs just literally gave out. And at first, I think they didn't realize how serious it was. But then when they couldn't get him up, so his wife tried to get him up and her son, they ended up calling 911 because they physically could not hold him up. His legs just literally stopped working. So paramedics, ambulance came out. They did some questions thinking maybe he had a stroke, but he knew his name, he knew the year, he knew all that sort of stuff. So they ended up taking him to the hospital and running some tests, and they determined that he had some pressure pushing down on his spine. I don't know the wording for it, but then that meant that his legs were just not working because of the pressure that was put on his spine. And at the time, this was during the peak of COVID. So literally, everything was locked down. So he had no visitors and no one by his side. And after he had the surgery, he suffered multiple strokes. And by the time I was finally allowed to go in and see him, it was 6 weeks later. And he was completely bedridden. And he cried the entire time I was there. I think he was scared. I think that he may have been embarrassed. I think that he was in a lot of pain, realizing that he probably has lost his independence for good. And he was completely alone for weeks. And I remember standing there watching him cry. this man who had always felt so far away and feeling the wave of emotions I couldn't fully name. It was kind of like grief, guilt, resentment, compassion, like he was still my dad. But in that hospital bed, he wasn't the man that I grew up chasing. Like he was just a human, broken, vulnerable, and for the first time in my life, he actually needed me. And the hospital staff was asking, okay, what's going on? Where is he going to go? Let's get things planned out. And I didn't know. I didn't have any of the answers. I knew he couldn't go back home because his wife couldn't care for him. She had her own health issues. Her son that lived with her, he had his own thing going on and couldn't help either. And then something happened that still blows my mind to this day. My mom, yes, my mom and my stepdad offered to bring him home. You know, the man who left her as a teenage mom, the man who was never really present for her kids, and yet she said yes without hesitation. Well, there was some stipulation. She did tell my brother that we both had to show up there daily. We had to be there to help care for him because it was going to be a group effort. And that's what we did because I didn't have room at my house. My brother didn't have room at his house. And my parents were actually, they didn't have a lot of room either. They owned a house and they had a triplex in the back that they rented out. In their house was just the main floor that they had, and they rented the upstairs. So when you walk into my parents' house, you walk right into the kitchen, and off the kitchen is a bathroom. And through the little entrance from the kitchen, you walk into the living room. And then through that is their bedroom. So that's literally it. And my parents, they kind of rearranged the living room, and we got a hospital bed offline and we put it in the living room, and we made a whole little setup for him. And when we first brought my dad home there, he couldn't chew, he couldn't swallow properly. We literally had to puree his food, like baby food. We bought him, and we would have to spoon feed him. We'd have to crush up his pills. He was in a lot of pain, so he wanted us to rub his legs, his shoulders. We had to do some physio with him. It was just a whole thing. He couldn't go to the washroom on his own, so we had to change him. It was a 2-person job. My brother wasn't in for that, so he was like, no, I'm not taking part in that, which is understandable. But you can just imagine how I felt and how my dad felt having his daughter change him. Like, I'm sure he felt a certain type of way about that. Not to mention his ex-wife too. But thankfully, we did have a PSW come twice a day to help us rotate him and move him. And he just got, like, obviously baths in bed too as well. And yeah, we just did it day in and day out. And it was tough. It was super challenging. It was a lot. It was more than most people could probably handle, but we did our best. We really did. For the first little while, I was there from like 8 in the morning until 10, 11 at night. And my mom was there all night. And the toughest part was that my dad worked nights, so he was a night hawk. So he likes to stay up and watch TV all night. And my stepdad was still working at the time. He hadn't retired yet. So he would have the TV on all night, and he'd be calling for my mom, and it was just like a whole thing. And eventually we just all got so burnt out by just caring for him day in and day out. It wasn't going to be something that we could maintain long term. It just wasn't possible, because even if you walked in the other room to get a drink or to eat something, he would be calling out for us. He always wanted you by his side 24/7. And we did our best. We really did. And the saddest part is towards the end, right before we moved him into a long-term care home, we had him sitting on the edge of the bed almost on his own. We thought if he keeps going with this physio, he'll be walking again in no time. We saw that spark, that sliver of possibility. But once he got into the home, it all stopped. He declined physio every single time they offered it, and no one pushed him to continue. So eventually he just stopped trying. And now he's still bedridden, no real mobility left. And the small progress we had made was just all gone down the tubes. And I can't lie, it's heartbreaking to watch someone you love give up, to know how much you poured into their recovery, all the meals, the care, the physio, the energy, and to just watch them slowly let it go. It's kind of like a grief that doesn't have a funeral, It's like quiet, heavy, ongoing. And if I'm being honest, the entire season of caregiving, like just caring for him, it broke me in ways I'm still unpacking. There were moments I felt strong, like I was doing something deeply human and beautiful, something not everyone would have the heart to do. And other moments I felt angry, I felt resentful because we were pouring everything into someone who had never done that for us, like me and my brother and my mom. And it kind of felt backwards. It felt unfair even. And it felt like a never-ending loop of being needed, but never acknowledged, because not once did my dad ever say thank you. Like, I kept telling myself I was doing it because of who I am, not because he earned it, and that's the truth, but it still hurts. Like, I would drive home most nights completely drained, physically, yes, but also emotionally depleted. There were days I'd sit in my car in silence before I walked into my mom's house just to let myself feel the sadness, the grief, the weight of everything I didn't say. I was grieving the dad I never had, which is so crazy. Like, while taking care of the man who was finally right in front of me, but still emotionally out of reach, if that makes any sense. Like, I felt compassion, but I also felt bitterness. It was this constant tug of war inside me. Like, I was trying to be a good daughter while also mothering my inner child who never got what she needed from him. It was just confusing. And some days it was just super lonely. And still, as hard as it was, as emotionally draining and quietly devastating as some days felt, we made a choice. We chose to bring him home. We chose to care for him, and we chose to show up. And even now, I still believe it was the right thing to do because my dad needed someone. He needed help, and no matter how complicated the past was, he's still human. He's still our father, and he's still deserving of dignity. And if I'm being completely honest, as wild and exhausting as it was, that experience brought me closer to my mom than I ever expected because we were on the same team for once. We leaned on each other, we laughed when we could, we cried when it got too heavy, and we got through it together. And I want to be really clear about something here. I don't want to minimize what my dad was going through. What happened to him was tragic. To lose your mobility, your independence, your dignity, that's not something I take lightly. I don't ever want it to sound like his pain didn't matter just because we were so tired, because it absolutely did. His experience was real and awful. But at the same time, what we carried while caring for him mattered too. It wasn't either or, it was literally both. Because there's no scoreboard when it comes to pain, but there is room to acknowledge how hard it was for all of us, even when no one said thank you, even when love felt complicated, even when we were grieving what we never had while caring for what was left. If you feel that tug of war in your chest listening to this, take a moment to breathe with that feeling because you're not alone. Eventually, we did get my dad into a long-term care home. It was back in his hometown, closer to his wife, so he could see her more often. I still drive out to see him. It's about 3.5, 4 hours away from me, and I try to get out there once a month. Even after everything, even now, at my last visit with him, something shifted. He was a little different, but still the same thing. I had just walked into his room and he asked me right away to give his wife a call because he had no time left on his phone and she needed money to put time on it. No hi, no how are you, just another ask, but I expect that. And I'll be honest though, something inside me cracked a little. It wasn't anger, it was just like a quiet disappointment because you always do wish that things will change, but they never do. But after that, we did have a nice visit and he did share some stuff with me that was super vulnerable. The month before that, he was in the hospital. He had to get a blood transfusion, and he told me that he was really scared. He said that he felt like he was close to dying, and he told me that he wanted me to call my brother and bring him up with me next time because they haven't spoken in over a year. We had my dad's birthday last July, and that's the last time my brother had been up there to see him. And my brother doesn't call, and he doesn't call my brother. Their relationship just has always been this way. It's been super tense, especially because of the way my dad had treated him when he was younger. And my brother has just chosen distance. And honestly, I understand why. But then my dad looked at me and said something I would have never thought I would hear in this lifetime. He said, "Tina, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not being there for you and your brother like I should have been." And he probably saw the stunned look on my face. It was the first time literally in my entire life that he acknowledged it, that he owned it, that he said it out loud. And in that moment, I could have said so many things. I could have told him how much it hurt. I could have said how much I needed him when I was younger, how tired I was of carrying what he couldn't give. But instead, I said, "It's okay." Not because it was, but because I didn't want him to carry that guilt to his grave. He's not the father I needed, but he's still a man with feelings and a man who finally found the courage to say the thing I waited decades to hear. And I didn't say it was okay to excuse the past. I said it because I needed peace, because I didn't want to carry his shame or resentment any longer. Because letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It just meant I was ready to stop holding pain that wasn't mine to hold anymore. And when you care for someone who never really cared for you the way you needed, it does mess with you in ways that are hard to put into words sometimes. Like there's a weight you carry that no one really sees. Because on the outside, it just looks like you've been strong, but inside, it's layered, it's heavy and lonely. It's not just the physical care, it's every memory that resurfaces while you're doing it. Every vision of you that once waited, hoped, or felt hurt, now standing in front of the person who never showed up, still trying to do the right thing. And you wonder, why am I doing this? Why does it still matter to me? And why am I giving so much to someone who gave so little? And maybe the answer is because I'm not trying to rewrite the past. I'm just trying to make peace with it. not by pretending it didn't hurt me because I know that it did, but by choosing on my own terms what kind of person I want to be. It's not about earning anything. It's not about being the good daughter. It's about closing the loop within myself so I can stop living from a place of unfinished pain. So, if you've lived through something like this, you already know it's the kind of grief no one talks about. Not because they're gone, but because they were never really there. So I just want to say, I see you and I totally get it. And still, even after all of that, every time I talk to my dad on the phone, he asks the same question. When are you coming to see me? It's like clockwork. No, how are you? What are you doing? It's when are you coming to see me? And one time I had planned to come for a visit, but there was a major ice storm that day. The roads were dangerous and it just wasn't safe for me to drive. So I called him and just let him know I wasn't going to be able to make it. But the next time I visited him with my mom, we were walking down the hallway towards his room. And I heard him say to the nurse, "Call my daughter and make sure she's coming this time. She was a no-show last time." And something about that just sat in my chest like a brick because I wanted to say, really? A no-show? How about all those years I waited for you to show up? How about every birthday I sat by the phone hoping you'd call? How about every Christmas you didn't come? Every recital, every graduation, every school event where I scanned the crowd hoping to see your face? But I didn't say any of that because I know it wouldn't change anything. And honestly, he probably doesn't even remember those things anyways, not the way I do. That's the hard part. Sometimes the people who let us down the most are the ones who remember our missteps the loudest, and their own, not at all. So no, he may never get it. He may never see what it costs me, but I see it. I live it, and I made peace with it without needing him to understand it. Because I know who I am and I know what I gave. And sometimes the most powerful closure isn't a conversation. It's knowing you gave what you could and stopped waiting for someone else to make it right. So, if you've ever carried the weight of loving someone who didn't show up the way that they needed to, I just want you to know something. You're not wrong for wanting more. You're not bitter for remembering the moments that hurt. And you're not too much for still feeling it now. You are allowed to tell the truth about what it was. You're allowed to grieve the love you didn't get. And you know what? You are allowed to give what you choose to give on your terms. You don't need to become hardened to protect yourself. You can stay soft and still set boundaries. You can be loving and clear on what you will no longer tolerate. And you can walk away without hate in your heart. You are not here to fix anyone. You are here to free yourself. And if no one ever told you this before, I just want you to know I'm proud of you for staying kind, for staying open, and for finally making your peace matter too. So if this episode spoke to something in you, I'd really love to hear from you. You can always email me at talk@evolvingwithtina.com or message me on Instagram. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, someone who's walked through a similar kind of complicated love, please share this with them because sometimes we don't need advice. We just need to feel seen. All right, my fellow evolvers, until next time, keep evolving, keep glowing, and never stop showing up for yourself because you matter. Much love.